late season fantasy basketball sleepers. Let's go. The first two potential sleepers I want to talk about are two young players on the San Antonio Spurs. And the first one is shooting guard / small forward Malachi Branham. Now, if you haven't noticed already, the rookie has quietly put together a string of pretty good games recently. Averaging about 25 minutes over the last 2 months, we have seen him score in double digits and contribute okay numbers in other major fantasy categories such as assists and rebounds. And in the past month, he has averaged around 11.6 points, 2.7 rebounds, and almost 1 steal per game. Obviously, those stats aren't elite, but like many young players, I think Branham's efficiency and stats will improve as he gets more playing time and NBA experience. Now, we also can't forget that it's going to be another rebuilding year in San Antonio. So like the past few seasons, we can expect the Spurs to use the last few months to unleash the rookies for player development. And that we might see a nice bump in usage and playing time for Branham down the stretch. And since the Spurs are in no hurry to win as many games as they want, I feel like more experienced players like Devin Vassell and Trey Jones minutes might go down a bit in favor of someone like Malaki. Yeah, so down the stretch, I expect some high usage nights, and we might be able to see Branham set some new career highs and also contribute above average counting stats for your fantasy teams. So overall, there's a lot to like about Branham, as I feel like he could be a solid last roster player to gamble on for the last few months of your fantasy season. Another San Antonio Spur you might want to keep an eye on is big man Charles Bassey. His upside might not be as high as Branham, but I still see him as another sneaky deep sleeper who could come up big for your teams during the playoffs. Like Branham, he kind of falls in the same category as one of those young players the Spurs might decide to unleash in the final few months. And from the after effects of the trade deadline, he looks like he is going to be one of the main benefactors of the Jakob trade and should be one of the Spurs' key big men to come off the bench. Right now, at worst, he's probably a backup center to me with guaranteed maybe 15 to 20 minutes a night. But if we take a look at their roster, Bassey's only true competition in the rotation is Zach Collins. And to be quite honest, that isn't much. So there is a chance that things could change real quick in San Antonio. And if the Spurs decide to go young, then I feel like Bassey has a legit shot to beat out Collins for starting minutes on some nights going forward. It also doesn't hurt Bassey's case that the Spurs recently signed him to a 4-year $10 million deal. So it does look like they believe in him and will probably give him a healthy dose of minutes in the next few months to either develop him or for him to showcase his true skills. So if you're looking for a deep league center to possibly come out of nowhere and finish off the season as maybe a top 120 player in most standard leagues, then someone like Charles Bassey of the Spurs might be worth a shot. Subscribe! Moving on to the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, two players who are on my deep league watch list probably includes Number 1, Matisse Thybulle. Newly acquired in Portland, he looks like he is in a better fantasy situation to battle for meaningful minutes at the small forward position. And with the Blazers trading away a player like Gary Payton, number 2, and Josh Hart, it looks like they might be willing to give Thybulle a shot to be that wing to give Dame and Anthony Simons some help on the defensive end of the floor. On paper at least, I feel like Thybulle looks like a good fit with the Portland Trail Blazers starting unit. If that's the case, we could see Thybulle rack up closer to 25 minutes a night, something Philly wasn't really able to provide him this season. And in Thybulle's case, we all know that he has always been able to provide solid and sometimes elite defensive stats, even with limited playing time. So as long as he gets consistent minutes in Portland, he can probably give you very healthy numbers in blocks and steals, and not cost you in other areas like turnovers and shooting percentage. Yeah, but do beware that the biggest knock on Thybulle's fantasy game is his inability to score. So don't expect him to drop you 20 points every night. But if he is able to unlock a little bit of his offensive potential in Portland, let's say he averages around 8 to 10 points a night, if you pair that with around 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 steals a night, then I would say you have yourself a pretty solid role player. And in some deeper competitive leagues, I feel like Thybulle could easily be that difference maker that gives you the extra 2 blocks or 2 steals to give you the slight edge over your opponents during tough weeks. Another Portland Trail Blazer who might be another high risk, high reward player to gamble on is Cam Reddish. Overall, I see him as a deep sleeper with upside to provide you with above average stats in scoring triples and free throw percentages. And don't get me wrong, he is for sure a streaky scorer with plenty of inconsistency issues, but when he is hot, Reddish definitely has no problem giving you a solid 16 to 20 points a night. In case you didn't know already, scoring is probably very hard to find on the waiver wire, especially this late in the season. So Reddish might be one of those flyer options to stream for your teams every week if you're looking for an extra 14 to 16 points a night. He also has a career average of 85% at the line and averages around 1 steal per game and around half a block. So all in all, those are not amazing stats, but he's not really a one-trick pony, especially when he's playing at 100%. So overall, like Thybulle, I feel like Reddish does have a chance to see meaningful minutes in the rotation at the small forward position for the Blazers. At the end of the day, it all depends on what Portland wants to do. If they want more scoring, then Reddish is going to be on the floor, and he might be one of the better fantasy targets at the small forward position down the stretch. Next, Ricky Rubio of the Cleveland Cavaliers might be another deep league point guard to look out for in the next few weeks, especially if you're looking for a proven fantasy streamer who can give you excellent numbers in assists and steals when he's healthy. Rubio is coming back from a major injury, so I think he might be flying under the radar a little bit in some of your leagues. But once he's back in full health, Rubio might be a huge bench player for the Cavaliers. From afar, it looks like he will serve as the team's backup point guard again this season. And on nights when they do decide to rest players like Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, then Rubio might be able to see a nice bump in playing time and capitalize on garbage time, and possibly give you a very solid stat line where he gives you maybe 10 to 15 points along with 7 to 10 assists, 5 rebounds, and maybe 2 steals. Because consistently we have seen Rubio put up those sort of stats over the past several years. Overall, I don't think you should pick up Rubio for his scoring, but I feel like he could be an okay streamer / deep league difference maker for teams looking for assists, steals, and above average rebounding stats at the guard position. Subscribe! Next, Josh Okogie of the Phoenix Suns looks like another safe sleeper to pick up as soon as possible. In fact, I think it might be a little bit too late in some of your leagues already. But if he's still available, I feel like he could be one of the best pickups to gamble on for the final 2 months of the season. In fact, depending on what type of league you play in, I might actually consider trading for him because I think his upside is that good for the next few months. In the 6 games where we saw Okogie play over 25 minutes, he was averaging 13.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.8 steals, 1.2 blocks, and almost 1 triple per game. So overall, those are very solid fantasy stats for someone who was sitting on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues earlier this month. With both Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson gone, and the Phoenix Suns likely taking their time with Kevin Durant, it looks like Okogie is going to come in and take over some of those stats left behind at the small forward position. I feel like the Suns won't hesitate and try to use him in the starting unit, which will definitely give him a nice bump in playing time. And there's always the opportunity that they're going to rest their stars down the stretch, which equals more garbage time for Okogie. Now, he has never been a great shooter, but surprisingly he has been able to consistently knock down his open threes, and having Chris Paul and KD on the roster should only help. If Okogie is able to hold a spot in the starting rotation, it looks like he's going to finish off the season as one of the biggest fantasy risers, and possibly give you Mikal Bridges' Phoenix Sun numbers before he got traded. Jalen Williams of the OKC Thunder might be another deep sleeper to pick up sooner than later. And no, I'm not talking about the shooting guard / small forward Jalen Williams spelt with an E, who should have been picked up a few weeks ago. But it looks like Jalen Williams spelt with a Y, aka the Thunder's young center, might be a sneaky fantasy basketball pickup down the stretch. Right now, he's considered a deep league flyer and streamer, but the Thunder aren't particularly deep at the center position. And to be quite frank, on nights where they do give him even only 20 minutes a night, Williams has been able to put up some decent numbers. As of right now, I'm not too sure who the Thunder will use as their starting center, especially in the last few months of the season. But Jalen with a Y might have a shot to be just that. So if you're looking for a sleeper center who can give you traditional big man stats, aka boards, rebounds, high field goal percentage, and blocks, and as a bonus, yes, get this, he can shoot threes as well, then center Jalen Williams of the OKC Thunder might be on your radar and watch list. Talen Horton-Tucker of the Utah Jazz is looking like another fantasy riser to break out in the next little while. And like Josh Okogie of the Phoenix Suns, I feel like he is one of the safer players to target if you have an extra spot on your roster. I kind of put him in the post-trade deadline breakout player to look out for category. In my opinion, he should be owned in most competitive leagues sooner than later, as he landed in a very favorable fantasy situation in Utah, and it looks like he could be a big part of their rotation starting now. With key players like Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, and Mike Conley all gone, Utah definitely needs some fresh bodies to eat up minutes and playing time. And so far, THT seems to be that guy. From what we have seen, they have been giving him some very solid minutes and a lot of usage and ball handling opportunities. Overall, he's a very well-rounded fantasy player who can give you a little bit of everything in all the major fantasy categories. And if the Jazz decide to tank, then I could see them limit minutes from other bigger players like Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton, or even give them games off. As a result, this will only open up more playing time for someone like Talen Horton-Tucker. So during your playoff, you might be the benefactor of some nights where he just pad his stats with garbage time for your fantasy teams, and he could be that difference maker that puts you over the top. So definitely keep an eye out for Talen Horton-Tucker of the Utah Jazz in the next few weeks and months. If you want to watch more of my crappy videos, then make sure you click the links on the side right here. Subscribe.